There it is. Perfect. Boom.
Oh yeah.
Now we're official.
Dude, that's awesome.
We are official. Yeah, man. What's been going on in your end, bro?
A whole lot. I've been, thank you. I've been working on this CD. My friends did this live studio recording. So they sent me the tracks. Their friend engineered it, so I'm just mixing it now. So that's kind of fun. I'm mixing and mastering that. Finishing up Son of a Gun's new record soon. Well,
is Wes he's in another band called Empty Hands too, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, they got their song coming out. A lot of mixing and mastering lately. It's been going pretty good. Getting some real good sounds.
That's good. So you're getting really comfortable on Logic and shit, huh?
Yeah, comfortable with how to use the plugins and how to get loud, juicy sounds. I'm still learning. The drums aren't sitting well in the mix right now. The kick and all, I got the guitars and bass way too loud. Just simple stuff like that. I'm still figuring it out, but getting way better. And just did drum tracks for Alfred's new record, and they crushed it, man.
Really?
Super. Yeah.
I've been spending a lot of time really digging into Logic and learning it, and I feel really comfortable with it now. Like I feel like I can fucking I could do a lot in Logic now. That like, remember when we first started and we couldn't figure out how to even get the inputs to get monitored. Like we would just struggle with the simplest shit, like input monitoring, and I was like, what the fuck? So I've spent a lot of time just like watching YouTube videos and shit like that, like learning it. Mm-hmm. I should probably know it since I work for the company that makes the fucking program. So that's another reason.
It's a complicated program. There's so much stuff in Logic, man.
Very deep, very deep.
The weird thing,
so it's a live studio recording. So it's basically like they just got in the studio, plugged it up as a band together, and they didn't do it track by track. Just tracked it all at once. That's cool.
Yeah, the guy that engineered it, he had a really cool setup. He had wireless in-ear monitors. So he had everything routed out. So I was able to learn like how you route out for monitors. And on the back of the recording interface, it has the left and right main output from 4 monitors studio, listen back. But it has like 8 other channels for whatever else. And when I plug into that, it would never work on the speakers. Like, how do I... So I was looking at his setup, and you actually have to route out in Logic stereo output 7 and 8 or whatever, and that corresponds to those. So that's how he ran the wireless in-ear monitors out from Logic for the band.
Crazy. I didn't know it was possible.
Yeah. You got to
Logic
on the sound bar there.
Channel strip.
Yeah, the channel strip. Where it says stereo out, that's your main out. You click that, and you can pick a different output. And those outputs on the back. So if someone needs monitors, you can run a monitor to their drum set, and then come out with the left, right into it, and then you got to go to you got to send all the tracks to an auxiliary, and then send that auxiliary output to his monitor. And
but the other component is you got to have those wireless monitors too. So how much do those run?
I don't even know. It was a nice setup though. So they had the dude's guitar rig going straight in, and he had like this really nice pedal board, and then Spencer's bass was straight in, and then the drums had really good mics on them. It was a nice drum kit. I was pretty impressed. And then I just adjusted the gain and made it all right in the pocket. And then now he sent me the Logic project like we did. It was badass. So
cool. I love that you're getting deeper into it, and we're both kind of learning at the same time, kind of separately. So whenever we do come together, and I know I need to put more time into our music and stuff again, but it's going to be way easier. Yeah, we don't have all these fucking roadblocks that we had before, where we're just struggling to figure out how to send a file to each other to work on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You got to save it as folder instead of package. Yeah. It's like, what the frick, man?
Yeah, it's just not. It's not logical.
And I got more of these microphones here. Can you see it?
yeah, yeah.
The slate condenser microphones. I got 3 of them now. So I recorded my live drums on the CD. I mic'd the snare and the toms with this here, and I triggered my kick drum.
I'm gonna have to get some of those just for. So we've been, like we've been doing these Twitch streams in Golgothan, and I'm gonna have to get some type of setup to where I have a capture card, where I can run a camera into my computer and run this program called OBS. But I'm gonna also need like a good external microphone as well, and not just use like a headset or something for when I'm doing it.
Yeah,
so,
it's a good mic. It's a good mic. For a small condenser mic, it gets all the frequencies, all the super low stuff. It gets. I did Stan's vocals for their single. If you go listen to it with that microphone, it gets everything.
I need to go listen to that. Remind me when we get off of here to go check that out, because I need to. I keep forgetting.
I also had 2 of my regular off-brand overheads on his vocals, like out right here, and I panned them left and right, then pulled them down. So there's a little bit more high end and harshness in his vocal track that isn't there with just the slate microphone.
Yeah.
So if you're listening, you're like, there's a little bit of high end. It's from those overheads. And this comes with those mic models. You know what I'm talking about?
Like a modeler for the program?
Yeah, that slate mic's a modeling microphone.
So you can model other microphones, like you can have it act as a different mic in the program?
Yeah. Yeah, it comes with the download for the software, and it's got like the SM57. They name it different, like the S57 or something.
Yeah, they can't because of copyright and licensing and shit, but...
Yeah, it's even got some a kick drum mic model, so I guess you could use that on the kick drum. I mean, I'm sure you can. It's a great mic, and it's got you can use that software on any other mic track as well. It's just a plugin, and it's freaking awesome, dude. I love it. I love it.
Speaking of, like, I figured out just how to get way better guitar tones in Logic. Like, at first I would like load up like one of the default tracks they have built in and just kind of tweak that. But I learned just to like, when you start a guitar track, don't even open up one of those. Just clear your track, clear your channel strip where it's an empty channel strip, open up Amp Designer and start from there. And I get way better tone. Like every one of those other pre-built-in Logic defaults for guitar has a bunch of like weird effects and shit they always add into it. So they have weird, it's just all flavored weird. But I found that like whenever I go straight Amp Designer on there, Logic does a fucking phenomenal job of like really replicating what those amps sound like a classic like Marshall sound or a Fender Silverface sound. Like it gets pretty damn close to the actual sound of those.
The built-in Logic amp designs?
The Amp Designer, yeah.
Yeah.
Like you clear the channel strip and just start with that. And then you can add effects and, everything to it and EQ it a little bit more to your liking. I normally add a compressor to it as well. But yeah, I've gotten a lot better guitar tones than like the track I sent you with Illuminati Squatty Potty. Like I just used one of the default Logic guitar defaults. Yeah. And I wish I'd have known about, just getting better guitar tones before I did that track, but I think it came out all right anyway.
I want to reamp. I want to start reamping stuff just for the sake of it. That's
what Jai does with Golgothan shit. He reamps everything. So we track with just a modeler just for the tone, but then he strips that off the channel where it's just a straight input of the guitar coming in. And he runs that through our amps, like our actual live amps, and cranks it to actual show volume. That way he gets the nice crunch and everything.
That's how you do it right there.
And I mean, go check our shit out. It sounds good. He does a pretty good job.
It does. I listened to it.
Does a pretty good job.
It does.
So, bro, you heard Capra. I don't know if you're familiar with some of the local bands around here anymore, but Capra got signed to Metal Blade.
Really?
They're a local. Yeah, I don't know if you know. What's Tyler's last name? Shit.
Ron?
No, he's been in a bunch of bands. We've definitely played with him before.
That's badass, man.
But yeah, they got signed to Metal Blade, and so like Jai has been, and Jai recorded their shit. So like Jai's been going back and forth with these producers from Metal Blade to like, hand them projects and stuff that they were working on over to them. So pretty cool stuff.
That's awesome.
Cool
That's awesome.
The world's been going crazy since the last time we spoke. We have fucking protests every day in Lafayette now. I don't know if you've heard about the shit that's down here. Yeah.
Why?
Dude, so I don't know if you saw like they had this guy that the police were I don't know what the original situation was, but the police were trying to apprehend this black guy. They had tased him a couple times. He wasn't complying. He had a knife, supposedly. I don't know. Supposedly he had a knife in his hand, and he was going to enter a gas station. And then the cops are telling him, don't. And then they just unload on this fucking dude. Like 11, like they lit him up. Like the video is pretty hard to watch because they fucking light this dude up. It's like 11 shots that they shot this guy with.
Damn.
So everyone got pissed. Like, hey, it was super unnecessary amount of force and everything. And I get it. But our mayor president, Josh Guillory, goes on fucking TV and is like, we're not going to have our town turn into these other places like in Portland and he didn't say anything about the victim, right? About the guy who got shot, right? He just said, we're not going to allow this, we're not going to allow any unrest and any type of basically violence that we're seeing in these other places, and didn't address anything else. And so that lit a whole nother fire where people started protesting outside his house. And so yesterday, I'm going to do my Twitch stream. My Twitch stream yesterday was workout with the Kettlebell Killer. So I got in full fucking costume, right? And
Kettlebell Killer.
Yeah, so they started calling me the Kettlebell Killer from whenever we went on tour. Because I brought a kettlebell and a couple dumbbells with me, and then every morning I would wake up and I'd be in the parking lot of fucking Buc-ee's doing like kettlebell swings and push-ups and shit, just doing my workout, while we're on tour. So they started fucking with me, started calling me the Kettlebell Killer back on tour. So it just kind of stuck. And so we were just we were going to do this dumbass thing where they filmed me doing a workout where I'm like just drinking beer and like lifting weights and shit, just being really stupid. So I went to Jarek's house to get ready for that, and on the way there, I noticed there was a bunch of protesters on the corner, like at the LUS building on the corner of University and St. Landry. And so I didn't pay no mind to it. I went around them, and when I got to Jarek's, I put all my face makeup on, which is a lot of black makeup around my face, and I had a little bit of white on my lips, and a little bit of white on my nose, and I realized, fuck, I forgot my mask. So I'm like, oh shit, I have to go back to my house and get my mask. I had to drive by these fucking protesters, and I don't even think about it. Like, it looks like I have fucking blackface on because most of my face is in fucking black makeup. And I'm like shitting and having anxiety the whole time. Like, these people are going to pull me out this fucking car and beat the shit out of me because they're going to think I'm driving by with blackface on. But yeah, so that was a fun little yesterday.
Quite the opposite. You're actually very concerned about everyone's well-being on your way home to get your mask.
Yeah.
You fucking Trump supporter, you anti-masker. It's not what it looks like.
I promise, I'm on your side. But yeah, that was funny. And our stream went well, but awesome. Yeah, just figured I'd tell you that because it was just a funny little moment.
That's crazy.
But yeah, the world's going fucking crazy, man. Like Lafayette over here in little old Lafayette, we got protests and stuff. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have protests for police reform and shit, but like I think some of the people get a little misguided because they looted the City Trends on the north side of town. So
the city what?
The little City Trend store they have on the north side. They like smashed the windows and looted the fucking place. It's like, this is not helping anything, and it's in the part of town that like needs police, right? It's on the north side.
Yeah, that's a poor part of town. That's what the protests are there to protect. Why are you going in there and destroy?
And go loot something on the fucking south side, like. Yeah. I mean, don't loot anything. Period. Yeah. Right? Because it's taken away from the message you're trying to get out there. But why are you gonna go hurt your own fucking people? But
that's what's so weird, man. Like, who are these people that that protest. I don't get it. I don't even know how to put it into words because it's so commonsensical, if that's a word. Baffling. Commonsensically baffling.
And then, so they also, the guy got shot at the Circle K on the north side of town. The next day, for them protesting, they like linked arms and wouldn't let anyone into that Circle K gas station. So like they basically like were surrounding the gas station and no one could pull in to get gas or go in there to do business. And I mean, the Circle K didn't do anything to the poor fucking guy. I think they were just mad at the fact that the Circle K was opening up for business the next day. But if you think about it, like, bro, like people have to fucking eat, they have to pay their bills. Like,
yeah,
it's not
man,
that guy's, not that store owner's fault that this shit happened. So
yeah,
I get the anger. I get where people are coming from. I get it, but like, let's be logical about it. You know?
Yeah, it doesn't fix that and that destroy businesses and stuff.
Yeah. And like, they also shut down roads, so they blocked Evangeline Thruway, wouldn't let cars. They started blocking. There's videos of like people, and it's all like white women and white people doing it too. There's these like, there's a video of fucking white women like blocking this truck, like in the middle of Ambassador Caffrey, like right across the street from Best Buy. Standing on the road screaming at these people, "Are you inconvenienced? Are you inconvenienced now?" It's like, what makes me upset about that situation is I'm thinking like, you know how many times I had to drive that road with Penny? Because there's a hospital at the end of that road where like I had to make so many fucking times for I'm sick, right? And if they would have stopped me in an emergency situation like that, I don't know what I would have done. I've been that fucking crazy that you see on the news, or like, you know, someone ran over, or like, but I would do it for my own child, you know, like it's just, it
doesn't make sense. Yeah, because those young white people like that, they're not the ones on the receiving end of the violence they're protesting.
Well, what's hilarious about the video is at the end of the video, a black dude comes up and like waves the white, like the people that are yelling at him out of the way so the truck can go. He's like,
because most black people don't relate or connect to the movement that these entitled young white people are pushing, because they're jumping onto these trends and they feel like they have to do it because their favorite politicians and celebrities are pushing it, but they don't actually understand the issue personally. So most black people are like, what the fuck are you doing out here fighting our battles, stopping the roads, yelling at other people? This isn't what just like a lot of trans people and in the gay movement, they don't relate to these. It's the same people, entitled young white people out here fighting the battle that mainstream media and celebrities are telling them to fight.
I think it's just a lot of people, at least here in my hometown, from what I've seen, it's just a lot of people want to be a part of something.
Yeah.
Right? See something happen, they want to be a part of something. And a lot of those people probably have really good intentions, and I get it. It's just...
It comes from a good place.
Comes from a good place. I just wish they would stop and think about some of the actions before they do them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, you know, how can we really make some type of change instead of just almost making... You're basically creating enemies when you do that. Like if that person in that vehicle in that road that you're blocking might have been on your side, and now like you just harass a lot, and you just harass them as they're trying to do whatever, right? Bring their child to the hospital or whatever, just trying to get to work, to pay bills, to feed their children, you know?
And they're
like,
assuming that
they're like, fuck you. I'm not going to support this anymore, right? Yeah. So it's
exactly
no net gain from doing something like that, right?
It's exactly what they hate. They are exactly what they hate. They go out and they judge people and assume that they are racist and entitled. So they stop the road and yell at them that they're racist and entitled. It's like, dude, I'm on your side. I'm one of you. I just happen to be driving on the road right now. There's probably people that were driving to that protest that got stuck in that traffic.
I was thinking that like if I did get stopped, like that's what I would like protest. Let me around. I gotta go park. I'm gonna go park. Let me just. I'm driving to the protest. I'm coming for you guys.
Yeah, I'll always keep a protest sign.
And they let me around,
seat.
and I just fucking haul ass down the road.
Yeah. Yeah, you keep a protest sign in your back seat, like it just like floats up in your window, like I'm one of you. They let you go.
Just fucking haul ass around.
One thing that was super fucked up for me that I noticed was, after months of coronavirus locking down the economy, and then once people really started to kind of get back out there and the CDC numbers came out to be not what they said it was, and the new numbers are even less. But once the coronavirus spiel started to wind down, then the Black Lives Matter protest happened. And all of the people that want masks and government mandates went out on the streets en masse to protest government power. And then once that died down, they're back in the streets to protest no government power. It's like on one day they want it to make you wear a mask, and the next day they want to dismantle all of it, and they're gathering in the streets with no social distancing. So at the same time, these people are living this double standard on TV, and people still don't get it. And then the answer is, well, it didn't spread in the protests because they wore masks. It's okay if it didn't spread because of masks. If it didn't spread because of masks, then there's our answer. Let's open the economy and get back to work with masks.
Yeah,
and then the NBA is a huge propaganda machine. Like everything follows suit. They canceled the first sporting event when coronavirus started, and after that, everything followed suit. And then they just canceled again for the Black Lives Matter, but then the ratings were down, so they uncanceled it. And it's like I think it's a huge propaganda machine. But basically, they were pushing. You probably remember it. Strike for Black Lives Matter. It's like, dude, we've just all been out of work or slowed down for like 3 months, and now you want us to strike for a different cause? It doesn't make sense at all.
No, we're all fucking hurting from this too. Like, I mean, I'm not working as much, not making nearly what I was making. I mean, most of the people I know are in that same situation, right?
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of logic behind some of the decisions these folks are making,
Yep. I think it's going to disappear after the elections.
Oh, I think that it's going to be that's another thing. Like November, I'm worried, like what's going to happen when either side wins, right? If Trump wins again, it's going to be fucking chaos. If Biden wins, the Trump support, dude, and that's the other thing. I have some fucking wild, crazy ass Trump supporters that like I have on my my friends list, and they're fucking terrible, man. Like some of the shit they say, like talking about they're gonna take their gun down there and like light these protesters up, and you're not any better than these other people, right? With a different perspective.
It's like, scary, man, because the propaganda. Propaganda has gotten people on edge, and all they have to do is go on TV and say go. Or QAnon on Twitter says go, because QAnon's been riling up this civil war. There's been this civil war talk for the last 4 years, civil war in the streets, civil war, unrest. And it just foments this environment, man. And people, it's a very scary time right now.
I've been trying not to like even look at the news or any of the media lately, just because, man, my mental health has been fucked because of, I mean, just lately, just because of my personal life. And so like, I'm just struggling every day just to get up, sometimes. So like to have that in your face all the time, this constant negativity is, man, it's really not good for you. And, I've been seeing all this stuff about this kid, Kyle Rittenhouse. I don't know if you looked into that story at all.
Yeah.
And you can probably educate me on it, but that's another thing.
I can't. It's
been politicized. It's been politicized. I see people on the pro-Trump saying like, oh, well, he was just out there trying to police the community and protect the community and clean up the streets. But then like he shot and killed some fucking people that were protesting, like, but he wasn't from that area. So
yeah,
that I don't even like. How do you justify this kid driving from a different area? He was obviously looking. that to me tells me he was looking for some type of violence, right? Or some type of altercation, coming from out of town with a fucking AR and walking around doing that. But once again, this is another thing that's like politicized, where people on Trump's side are saying that this kid, you know, he was doing the right thing in this situation, and they're like antagonizing the Black Lives Matter group with this stuff, like saying things like, "Well, if y'all couldn't handle a kid that's 17 years old that comes to clean the streets, wait till the Civil War starts and y'all try and actually handle like an actual vet." Saying shit like that, like, bro, like, can't you just try and be a fucking good human being?
Mm-hmm.
It's just sad, man.
And
I really didn't follow that fucking story just because I see like this is a whole nother thing that falls into this volatile political cycle that everything gets thrown into, whether it's the mask, the Black Lives Matter movement, or coronavirus, police protests, like everything.
Did you see the latest CDC numbers on the COVID deaths?
So I heard about that. So that's something like 6% of the deaths that were attributed to COVID were from. The way I understood it is that 6% of the coronavirus deaths were attributed only to coronavirus, right? So didn't have other underlying conditions that caused them. The other 94%, I suppose, were associated with other underlying health causes, right?
Yeah, like 3 or 4 major underlying conditions like cancer, like really bad. And then like if someone's on their deathbed with cancer and they die from cancer but test for COVID, they marked it down as COVID. So only 6% were actual people that straight up got COVID, which is about 9,160 from what I remember, out of a total of 170 or 80,000. And that's the number the mainstream news keeps pushing, is that big number. So all these celebrities, like Jim Gaffigan was on Twitter, 180,000 people died under Trump's watch. We need a new president. And I just want to comment, like, Jim, you fucking fuck, wake up. But I'm like 1 in 800,000 commenting on Twitter.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, this isn't a conspiracy. It's the numbers from the actual CDC website. It's just not announced on the news. So it's not as truthful, I guess. But back to the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, the people that were arrested, I don't know if you saw that weekend. What was that, in Portland? It was like 150 people.
Wasn't that in Kenosha or whatever?
Kenosha, yeah. It like 150 people were arrested. 102 were from out of state across 44 states.
What?
102 were from 44 different states. Like 60 of them, like 69, they were there and they already had, they were there that got arrested for gun violence, drugs, or assault, things like that. That's what they were arrested for. And then 20 of them, 20 of those 60 people maybe didn't have any of those and they were let out or something. But that lends to the theory, which isn't really a theory when you consider George Soros giving like $220 million to Black Lives Matter and like $100 million to the LGBTQ movement. There's like major oligarchs behind these mass movements, because you can't even, I mean, think about people. They don't get out of their house to go protest. They just get pissed.
Yeah.
How do like instantly the streets are filled with protests? It's because like they have money invested in pushing this movement in a corporate way. Advertisements, commercials. Dude, I saw a little stand on the side of the road selling handmade masks and Black Lives Matter t-shirt. It's like a business, like a trend. Now, yeah, like handmade mask, Black Lives Matter t-shirt. Like, oh, there's my stop. That's what I'm into. I'm into these things. Yeah, I love handmade masks.
I think that, you know, and like I said earlier, I think that some of the people that are into like BLM and stuff like that, like they have good, it comes from a good place.
It comes from a good, because it's a real issue. I have
a very, like, one of my best friends, you know, the black guy, and he's, you know, BLM supporter, but he's not, you know, if you go, people have been like tormenting him a little bit on his personal personal social media pages saying shit like, do you know that BLM's a Marxist movement, shit like that? And he's like, I don't care about that stuff. And he doesn't. Like, the normal average black person that supports BLM, they don't know anything about the Marxist agenda and stuff of BLM and stuff like that. Like, they legitimately feel for their brothers and sisters, right? That they feel are getting mistreated by the police.
Yeah.
And I think that's a real fucking problem that we need to talk about. We need to fucking fix, for sure. And then the destruction of the black family with the fucked up drug laws that we have in this country.
From Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Yes, that shit is real, man. That shit's really hurting those communities, right? You take the father out of the equation in a lot of these cases.
Yeah.
And like, bro, like there's going to be chaos that ensues in these communities, right? And they're policing harder. They're policing these drug laws way harder in areas where people of color live, you know? So that's a real fucking problem we need to fix, for sure.
That's the interesting thing, is that's the solution, is the drug laws that were drafted by Joe Biden and Kamala. That's the solution, is to vote for the right people based off of education and eliminate the laws that are causing these systemic racial problems. Yes. But these issues get weaponized by these people in power, so that solution is never addressed or learned about. The solution is protesting, rioting, looting, hating Trump, and beating people. So that's how they take a real situation, weaponize it, control the narrative so that the solution is lost. They don't offer a solution. There's not been one solution about coronavirus, you know, your immunity, your health. Fauci just went on TV last week and said that never in the history of respiratory illnesses do asymptomatic people become the driving force of a pandemic. And this whole time it's been fear-mongering about asymptomatic. You could have it and you don't know. Flatten the curve. And Fauci came out and said, asymptomatic doesn't matter. Symptomatic people are the ones that cause pandemics. And it's only been wait. He said that on TV.
What the fuck? I thought the whole thing was that it was asymptomatic people who were causing the spread of it. So we need to and that's another thing you brought up, flatten the curve. I haven't heard that in a while. Have we flattened the curve yet? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Can we let people
LA, I think LA has been 2 weeks of like low numbers of cases per day. And Gavin Newsom's still holding on to the shutdown till 2021.
Yeah, these people fucking power, brother. We're not going to want to let it go.
And the interesting thing is, all of these riots and loots, well, I guess there's protests in Lafayette, right?
Yeah, but not on the scale that we have. Like, it was kind of funny. Like, of course, the Trumpers over here, I see them like posting shit like, the buses. You see, they posted all these pictures of buses, right? Like, near Lafayette, like Antifa's getting bussed in. Bro, we just had a fucking major hurricane destroy Lake Charles. Those buses are not Antifa. They're going fucking help people, 45 miles from Lafayette. Like, Jesus Christ. But no, Lafayette's nowhere on the scale of what these other cities are at. Like, the protests don't have like the thousands and thousands of people, except for that one, and no violence except for really that one day where they looted that city trend. So, it's not to that scale here yet. But the fucking Trumpers were like, oh my God, they're busting Antifa and shit. And it's like, they shut down do you know John Merrifield? John Merrifield?
No. Well, yeah, I know that name.
Yeah, he's about our age. He has this memes page, this Lafayette memes page, and he posted something on there about like Antifa coming to the mall. They shut down Acadiana Mall because of like a meme page, like his fucking satirical meme page.
Wow.
They shut down Acadiana Mall the other day, thinking that Antifa was coming to like vandalize and fuck up the mall.
Dude, that's how powerful the internet is, man. That's so crazy.
I felt bad for the guy. He's like, he posted the other day too. He's like, if I made anyone lose funds, I'll personally, from like missing their shift at the mall, I'll personally, take care of them or whatever. But
damn.
But yeah, you're right. That's how powerful the internet is. But yeah, so the world's fucking gone crazy since we last talked.
That's a perfect segue into what we're going to talk about today: sacred geometry.
Yeah, let's talk about rocks and pyramids now.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about the ages, about the Zodiac and the precession of our axis that moves through each Zodiac, and how we're at the end of Pisces. We're in Pisces right now.
Aren't we in Aquarius now? Or we're going into Aquarius?
I always have to sing that famous song. We are living in the age of Aquarius. Okay, yeah, we're in Aquarius.
Yeah, so we're in Aquarius, and I think we're going into Pisces. I'm looking at some of the screenshots from my notes here.
I actually think we are in Pisces going into Aquarius.
Okay.
We are moving into the age of Aquarius.
Before we dig into this, can I go get me another cup of coffee real quick?
Yeah, man, I gotta get that too.
So I'll let you get that pulled up. Give me 1 second. I can still hear you though. My AirPods are still in.
So basically, the axis of the Earth has a wobble, and that wobble takes 25,920 years to complete. And every 2,160 years, it enters into a new constellation known as the Zodiac, the 12 Zodiacs.
Yes.
So we are in Pisces right now. Our axis is facing Pisces right now. And we're at the end of it. We're actually like within the 100-year range of moving into Aries. And more interesting, it's the new great year. We're at the end of the 25,920-year cycle. So every time we get halfway through the great year, the poles and the climate on the Earth shift. So in the last half of the great year, that more than 12,960 years ago, what is summer was winter, and what's winter is summer, because the poles were shifted all that time ago. Yes. So that's where climate change, I strongly believe, is coming from. Also based off of some CO2 studies, essays that I've seen about how it actually reacts with plants, and the amount that we're putting out, burning carbon, is very minuscule compared to the amount of CO2 already in the atmosphere, in the ocean, in the bedrock. So it's not, climate change isn't happening from fossil fuels, although pollution is not good. It's happening because we're at the end of the great year, and we're seeing increased volcanicity. We're going to be entering into like a meteor showers.
We're
climate change.
Cosmic shooting gallery now, right?
Yeah, and so that's happening due to the solar cycle, and it's going to happen all the time.
Let's tell folks like where we're getting all this information from. So
yeah, so you want me to
go ahead. So, you probably know a little bit more about Randall Carlson's background than I do. So
yeah, so basically Randall Carlson, geologist. I heard him on Rogan with Graham Hancock, which I'm sure you've seen those episodes. But what we're getting this information from is from Randall Carlson's 4-hour lecture called Sacred Geometry Patterns of let me read that title.
Patterns of Cosmic. So it starts off like the very beginning of the lecture. Randall Carlson starts out just kind of talking about some of the significant numbers that have been kind of recorded throughout history, right? Like of being of major significance. And he starts out real basic, right? Just talking about like, hey, look at the number used for measurements of time, right? So we have one solar day is equal to 24 hours. 24 hours by 60 minutes means that in one day there's 1,440 minutes in a day. And then if you look at how many seconds there are in a day, there's 86,400 seconds in a day. And 720 minutes times 60 seconds is 43,200 seconds. And you'll see these numbers repeated over and over and over again in different ways throughout ancient cultures. Right, you look at like measurements, right? 1 foot is 12 inches. 1 square foot, 144 inches. There's that 144 again. 1 cubic foot, 1,728 cubic inches. You'll see that come up. 1 square yard is 1,296 inches. You'll see that come up.
We just talked about that with the great year.
Just talked about
12,960. But
Yep.
and because the reason a square yard is relevant is because that square yard is a measurement used in a lot of these ancient megaliths. So it's specific to the measurements they're using in these megaliths and how
I
those
thought it
numbers.
was. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I keep
No,
cutting you off. I'm the interrupter.
I-
Like, fucking.
no, you're good. I could be wrong. Go ahead with what you're saying.
No, I just had a thought. Like, I was always thinking, like, man, why are we sticking with the imperial measurement system here in the U.S.? Like, why haven't we switched over to the metric system, like the rest of the world did, right? And it's kind of interesting. Like, the measurement system that we utilize now is the measurement system that some of the ancients utilized because of its cosmic relations, right? Its relations to the cosmos, right?
Cosmic
All,
relations.
all of these numbers have to do with our relation to the cosmos, and it's really mind blowing. And he lays out a ton of evidence in this 4-hour lecture, right?
Which is called. I have the
and
title right here. Randall
go ahead.
Carlson's Cosmic Patterns and Cycles of Catastrophe. It's 2 parts, 4 hours. It's awesome. I got it for 33% off. I forgot what the total price was. I highly recommend it.
It is very good. I was really blown away by the information in there.
I think he has a more advanced course too, like the gold course.
He talked about some stuff I wish he had talked about more, like how cosmic. I can't remember the term he used. Cosmic bio something, where basically what I gathered from it is how, like, biology on Earth came from the cosmos, right? Like from asteroids and stuff interacting with Earth.
I looked into some of that too.
He didn't go into that in this lecture, right? So I don't have a lot of information on that. He just briefly talked about it. Okay, I'll let you go into that.
Well, it's somewhere in my notes, so whenever we get to it.
Yeah, dude,
I'll sit here and scroll.
I'm not going to be able to read through all these notes because I took too many this time. So
I was thinking about that.
Next time, I'm going to have to consolidate and really.
No. See, it took us a while to do this research, to go through this. So I was thinking if it takes us 3 or 4 weeks to read a book and take good notes, then we should go hardcore with the podcast and do part 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, until we can cover the whole thing. And then after we finish 4 or 5 awesome podcasts, then we can take another month and research the next one. So fill it up and let's just go until we get it all.
So we'll start with the numerology, because that's kind of where the lecture starts, and kind of tie that together for everybody.
Let me talk about the point C, because I took notes just like you, so I think we have like all of these notes, which is badass. So there's 360 degrees of arc around the Earth when you're measuring meridian and longitude and stuff. 360, that's 21,600 minutes of arc. 360 times that. I don't know how they get that number, but that is equal to 1,296,000 seconds of arc. 12,960 again, a fractal of that.
Keep talking about that 1,296.
So the degrees and seconds to measure the sky, how seconds, minutes, and the arc. Degrees and seconds is equal to the number of years it takes for the axis to complete 1/2 of a great year. Which is really interesting, because at the very least, if all this is chance, if all these numbers and geometry and cosmic patterns just like line up by chance, that alone is amazing and lends to the Pythagorean way of thinking about harmony in the universe.
Yeah. It's almost like intelligent design. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. Intelligent design, if geometry and the fundamental geometry being the fundamental building blocks of existence, I think are the driving force of evolution and existence. So in that way, I think geometry might be God and the intelligent designer.
And I thought it was super interesting. So he did dive into a little bit. He said he had a whole separate course on sacred geometry, but he dove in a little bit to sacred geometry. And a lot of these numbers we're talking about, once again, pop up in all of the aspects of geometry. Another interesting thing before we move on into that, If you look at some of the significant numbers that we're going to talk about, 1440, 8640, 1728, 1296, they all add up to 9, or factors of 9. Right? So I thought that was really interesting, right? You can always break most of these down to get 9 from these numbers, right? So 1440, 1 plus 4 plus 4 equals 9. 8640, 8 plus 6 plus 4 equals 18. 1 plus 8 is 9. 1728, 1 plus 7 plus 2 plus 8 equals 18. 1 plus 8 is 9. 1296, 1 plus 2 plus 9 plus 6, 18 again. 1 plus 8, 9, right? So you see that coming up over and over again.
That's
and
in music theory as well.
Yeah.
That happens in music theory. The 1 and the octave, the 8 equals 9. If you play the second and go to the octave, what's that? Second and the 7th. There's these intervals. Now I'm confusing myself, but there's these intervals that always equal 9. 1 and 8.
Yeah.
The 3rd and the 6th. I'd have to go back to my theory book. I should have did that because now I'm confusing myself.
I have it behind me.
Bro, all I see is Illuminati Squatty Potty.
Oh, it's white. You can't. There we go. I'll shake it so you can see it. Yeah. Circle of Fists. Man, I'll cover that and we'll do that part 2. I'll touch back on part 2.
I thought that was super interesting. And like you said, hey, maybe it's all coincidence, but it's a lot of shit that lines up to make it coincidence.
Yeah, fascinating coincidence.
Let's talk a little bit about sacred geometry, right? So when you look at the sacred geometry, you look at the measurement of the number of degrees that determine the angles of the sides, right? So you have a circle, it's 360 degrees. Hey, what's 3 plus 6? 9, right? So, right, we keep having that 9 recurring. Look at an equilateral triangle. 60 degrees is the measure of the angle of all 3 sides of an equilateral triangle. 3 times 60 degrees is 180, right? That number 9 keeps recurring. You look at a square, right? 90 degrees is the measure of the 4 angles in a square. 4 times 90, 360. We look at a pentagon. The measurement of the number of degrees on pentagon is 108 degrees.
That's
for
a number.
The 5 sides. And then 108 is an important number that you'll see coming out a lot as in terms of like cosmic and lunar relativity. So 5 times 108 is 540. Hey, what's 5 plus 4? 9. All right. He mentioned just kind of that silver has the atomic weight of 108, right? And I think that's an important point we'll talk about.
Because the moon, where's that note? The silver has the atomic weight of 108. The cosmic entity, the moon, is associated with silver, and the diameter of the moon is 10,000. Is it 1,080 miles?
I have that later on. Let me see. Actually, and I have screenshots of all the images, so like that helps me a little bit here.
Did you figure out how to screen share?
Oh, I probably can do that, huh? Yeah, I can screen share.
Here it is. Atomic weight of silver, 10,800. The moon. Fuck, what was the information on the moon?
Oh, it makes me want to. I can't screen share because I'll have to quit Skype, but whatever.
Oh, okay.
The moon, I got it. The radius of the moon, right, is 1,080 miles, right? That's that 108 we talked about, right?
So the diameter
is 2,160.
Which is the total number of degrees in a cube.
Yep. So
total
really
coincidence.
Yeah,
total coincidence.
These numbers just keep popping up, and then he moves on to, whoa.
He's heard that horn honk?
Fuck you too.
Yeah. Don't they know I'm shooting a podcast?
What the fuck, man? All right. Then you look at then he goes on and talks about some of the 3-dimensional geometric shapes, right? And he talks about the tetrahedron, which is basically 4 equilateral triangles put together, right?
Yeah, like a 3D triangle.
Right. I wish I could screen share so you guys could see this, but just
Well,
Google tetrahedron. Um, the measurement of the number of degrees in the tetrahedron is 4 times 108, which is 720 degrees. Once again, that 9 is reoccurring.
and
Which, man, it's
720.
so fucking strange to me that this stuff keeps reoccurring in all these geometric shapes.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have the cube, right? The cube is, like you just mentioned, 6 times 360 degrees, because remember the measurement of a square is 360, and a cube is like basically 6 of those put together. So 6 times 360 is 2160. That's the moon, the diameter of the moon, which we're going to talk about later.
Don't forget the black cube of Saturn, which I think we talked about in the last episode, and how Mecca, Islam. I mix up Islam and Muslim. Nothing against the religions. Sorry, I just mix them up. But one of those religions, they go around that black cube. They worship a black cube. You know, at Mecca every year they all walk counterclockwise 3 times around that big black cube.
Yeah.
So they worship the cube. The cube's a big center focus of that religion. And then that lends into the black cube of Saturn, which is that hexagon or 6 or 5-sided thing on top of Saturn, which is Saturnalia and Saturnism, which is an ancient religion connected to the cube worship. So the cube...
The black cube of Saturn, because I know you talked about it a little bit on the last episode, but I've heard that come up a lot in conspiracy circles and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so I really want to do.
Thing.
I feel a little lost on that. I need to do some more research.
Me too. All I know is what I just said. But yeah, we should do an episode on that black cube. Is Belle peeing on your carpet?
Hey, can you hold on a second, Dillon?
Yeah.
Sorry. All right.
Yeah. We're talking about the cube.
Okay, the cube. So yeah, the cube, when you look at the measurements, 6 times 360 is 2160. And as we're going to see, as we continue to look at these sacred numbers in this episode, that is an extremely important cosmological number.
Super important.
Super important. All right, so then you got the octahedron, which that is basically 8 triangle faces composed of equilateral triangles. So we saw 1440 back in the number of minutes in a day, and then the number of inches, right? 8 times 180 degrees is the measurement of the degrees of an octahedron, which equals 1,440. That's another very important cosmological number. Once again, though, when you add 1 plus 4 plus 4 up, what do you get? 9. So we have this recurring theme of 9. All right, and then you have an I don't even know how to say this. Icosahedron?
Icosahedron and the dodecahedron.
So this is 20 faces, and it has 12 vertices of equilateral triangles, right?
The vertices is the points that they make. Yes. I didn't know that when
you were like listening in. All right, so
like, what's the vertice?
Measurement of that. It's loud.
What, the coffee grinder?
Yeah.
Sorry, my wife's making me some coffee, so.
Man, it's all good.
My studio is really nice, man. My podcast studio, I have a kitchen. I got a living room, a bedroom, and a bathroom connected to my studio. So,
bro, it's the shit. That's the best, bro.
It's a badass studio.
All right, so we have the icosahedron, which is 20 faces and 12 vertices. So 20 times 180, it would be the measurements of the degrees on there. And that's equal to 3,600 degrees.
3,600.
3,600 degrees.
That's the Sumerian great year. 360 years is a Sumerian great year, which I have some notes on that later. But that's why 3600 is important.
Then we have the dodecahedron, which is 12 faces and 20 vertices, right? And each one of those vertices, the measurement of angle at that is 540 degrees. So it's 12 faces, so 12 times 540 is equal to 6,480 degrees.
One platonic season is 6,480 years, or 3 constellations of the Zodiac.
And again, what do we have? The number 9, because 6 plus 4 is 10, plus 8, 18, 1 plus 9, 1 plus 8, 9. So we have the number 9 recurring again. Then you have another geometric. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to comment on these two shapes that Plato and other smart people of the time considered the dodecahedron to be the shape of the universe. They saw it as the 12. They saw the 12 faces of the dodecahedron represented the 12 signs of the zodiac. And the icosahedron and the dodecahedron are duals of each other. So I think it's the icosahedron will fit inside the dodecahedron, and each vertices will be in the center of each dodecahedron face. So
he had a very nice graphic that showed the interlocking of those two shapes together.
Yeah.
So once again, I know we don't have the visual component to go with this, but go support Randall Carlson. Go check out his lecture, because that's where we're getting all this stuff from, and it'll really click together for you.
And just a couple more things on the dodecahedron. It's made up of. I always mix up the hectagon and the pentagon, but the dodecahedron is made up of pentagons, correct? The 5-sided shapes.
That's right.
So the pentagon is an important. Yeah, that's an important shape because it represents the human figure. In reference to the Da Vinci Vitruvian Man with his arms out like that. So the 5 is a big number when you're talking about the human body and its measurements relative to the cosmic. Because
it's kind of, and to that same point, he talks about this later. We as human beings are like the perfect model for these cosmic relationships of numbers.
Yeah. Right? And it's all about proportion and relativity. So your thumb represents an inch, but not every thumb is the same. But the relative size of whatever part of your body to, I don't know how to explain it, but the relative measure. It's all about proportion. Does this make any
sense? The ratio. Yeah. The ratio.
That doesn't make sense the way I'm saying it, but it's not exact, but it is about the ratio and the relative proportion of the human body in some cases. But
I think I have something on that here in my notes too later, with the imagery of it. And
so the Vitruvian Man, it represents the 5 extremities, 5 fingers on each hand, 5 sides of the pentagon. The pentagon manifests the golden section, which is basically pi or the Fibonacci sequence. So the human body also manifests the golden section. It's the highest mathematical expression of the golden section, and the pentagon and the hectagon. So the relationship between the pentagram and the dodecahedron is the 5-sided shapes of the center of the pentagon make up the dodecahedron. So there's a real connection between the dodecahedron, the pentagon, pentagram, the human body, the degrees. It's a real circular connection between all those things.
Yep. And then once again, like I said, we have the number 9 associated with the dodecahedron. Then you have the star tetrahedron, where that's basically 2 tetrahedrons that are interlaced with each other. And remember the tetrahedron, it just so you recall,
3D
that is
triangle.
basically, yeah, it's the 3D.
Yeah.
It looks like a pyramid more or less, like 4 equilateral triangles, right? Put together.
Yeah, like
and
the star tetrahedron is like,
it's like they're going through each other, right?
yeah, one's right side up and the other one's upside down, so it makes like that 3D. Also known as a Merkaba or the Star of David, I believe would be the same or similar.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. And then so the number of measurements there, right? You have 2 times 720 degrees, because remember, if it is the tetrahedron's total number of measurement is 720 degrees, we have 2 of them interlaced together. So 2 times 720, what do we have? 1440.
1440.
Once again. So these are all, sacred geometric that have this same numbers that keep popping up over and over and over again, right? Maybe it's coincidence, but it's highly unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
So he moves on from talking about the sacred geometry to the sacred numbers embedded in the measurement of time. And you already alluded to this, right? So with the Earth spinning on its axis at this wobble, right? We have this precessional cycle of 25,920 years, right? So the motion of the Earth kind of looks like an hourglass. It makes an hourglass-like rotation. And so we have 3 motions of the planet that affect our lives here on Earth. We have the spinning of our axis, which is our days. We have the rotation around the sun, which is our years. And then we have the precessional cycle, which is what the ancients used to refer to as the great year, right?
And that's the actual axis, the axis
the
of
wobble.
Yeah, the Earth is on a wobble that takes 25,920 years to complete one wobble.
Yes.
But
so,
back to the cube, 2,160 degrees total in a cube, and the cube represents existence or Earth. Forgot what it, but the cube represents. But I always forget the super important thing. I look like an idiot. But it represents something if you look into it. So looking at the great year and the Zodiac, the 12 different constellations and how the axis moves through each one, and each one is our age that we're in. Each one constellation lasts 2,160 years. That's a Platonic month. And that's a cube, 2,160 degrees. A Platonic season would be 3 of those months, or 6,480 years, which was the total number in an icosahedron. One of those shapes earlier.
What was the number you just said?
6,480. I got it right here. The shape of icosahedron fits in the dodecahedron. The dodecahedron is 6,480.
Yeah, the icosahedron is 3,600.
Yeah. And 3,600, that's the next note, is the Saros cycle from the Chaldeans, 3,600 years, the number of degrees in an icosahedron. So the number of degrees in a dodecahedron equal 1 Platonic season, and the number of degrees in an icosahedron equal 1 Sumerian great year, basically, 3,600 years.
Yep.
Which gets into the decans. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The decans was kind of a hard thing to wrap my head around, but I think I have decent notes. So the great year is 25,920 years. In our life, this is where I get confused. See, because you got the axis doing the 25,920 year cycle, but then you got the Earth rotating every day, and the vernal equinox, where the light meets the dark, that little line right there, that travels the zodiac as well.
Yes.
So that perspective is also taken into account. 360 days is the Sumerian year, and the Chaldean, whatever that is, and they would add 5 days to equal it out. And that 360-day is equal to 6,480 hours. 6480 again.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's break it down a little bit more too. All right, so just kind of going back to we're talking about that wobble that the Earth is on, right? And they measured this. They measured this with modern instruments, right? And there's slightly over 50 seconds of arc of motion per year, which approximately equals 25,920 years before it makes the full arc, right? So just as the annual year is divided into 4 seasons, the great year was divided into 4 great seasons. You have, and these were symbolized by the 4 fixed signs of the Zodiac: the bull, the lion, the scorpion, the eagle, and the man or the angel. So if you divided 25,920 by 4 to determine the length of each season in the great year, you would get 6,480 years, like you were just alluding to, right? And that's
those
interesting.
4 signs are on megaliths when they have, I forget the one he showed, but it was Jesus, and then it was like a carving on a megalith. And then surrounding Jesus was a carving of those 4 signs each.
Yep. That was crazy.
The bull, the lion.
Showed that.
Yeah, because it just looks so random, like, oh, there's Jesus with these animals. But really, that old religion was astrological, and they paid great attention to the stars, and everything has a cosmological meaning or is sacred geometrically. So I thought that was super interesting because I'd seen stuff like that all the time, and I was like, oh shit, that's the Zodiac. And what's interesting is every time you enter one of these new seasons, not every age, but every season, every 3 ages, is when later he shows all the catastrophes that line up, like the past 180,000 years. All the major catastrophes in any way that reshaped the Earth happened at these seasonal marks relative to the great year at these 6,480 year intervals. And they were recording it in these megaliths.
And it's crazy because, like, you think these ancient people, like, how did they have the capability to take these measurements, to understand our place in the cosmos as well as they did without the current technology that we have? They understood the significance of these seasons. They understood the significance of, like, and that's why they're trying to track it. From what I kind of gathered from the lectures, the ancients were trying to track this cycle so that they understood when these great catastrophes would happen. All right, that really affect the Earth, because we pass through a shooting gallery, basically in the cosmos, every time we have the passing of one of these seasons, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's 2 things interesting about that. Is these cycles take thousands of years to unfold. So you would have to be alive for thousands of years to independently study it. So somehow they were able to do the study for thousands of years within a controlled environment that wound up being super accurate, that today's science proves. So either they did thousands of years of studying in this really tight controlled environment, or there was a know-all being who started civilization and transferred this knowledge to us immediately. One of those 2 things had that happen. Both are very impressive to me. Yes.
Yeah, that's where we're basically going with all of this is just kind of the assumption that there's more that happened in the history of humankind than what our history books tell us in terms of, ancient civilizations.
Yeah, way more.
And if you some interesting reads on that, like if you want to go check out, like, one of the ones I had read right as when Penny was born, when she was in the NICU, I started reading. It was Fingerprints of the Gods by Graham Hancock.
Mm-hmm. I got that audiobook.
I don't know if you've checked that out, but that talks a lot about that and how all these little clues and hints that these ancient religions, like, put in their in these megaliths and in their art that allude to some being or some all intelligent knowing thing giving them this knowledge. right?
And that lends into Göbekli Tepe, which I'm sure you've heard about because that's what Graham talks about a lot. And they have no idea what this huge megalith is for other than a transfer of knowledge. It's like a big ancient college campus, basically. And they've been trying to uncover it since, 2015 or 13 is when they discovered it. That long, they've uncovered like 4 or 5% of the total of this complex. And everything is astronomically aligned. There's Martin Sweatman or Mark Sweatman. But I can find that name real quick. I want to give him a proper shout out because he does an excellent video series breaking down the cosmological significance of Pillar 33 on Göbekli Tepe.
What's his name? I want to write that down too, so I can.
I'm looking it up right now. I just got to get to my YouTube subscriptions. Martin Sweatman, author of Prehistory Decoded. He's got a book, but he's got a multiple part series on YouTube that talks about Göbekli Tepe and how these astronomical at the thing point to a time where a major catastrophe happened again. So, yeah, check that out.
I will look into that.
Yeah.
So let's keep kind of discussing the great year, right? So folks can follow along, right? So remember, so we were at 6,480 years is the length of a season in the great year. So like you mentioned, the dodecahedron is 6,480 degrees, and that's equal to one platonic season. So he talks about some of the astrological time cycles, right? So he talks about a decan, right? So
yeah,
one
I wanted
decan
to get into that.
One decan is 10 degrees of the ecliptic, which is equal to 720 years in the great year. The duration in annual cycle of the sacred year. So 10 days is, where was he going with this?
I think this is what confused me. I think this is based off of the Sumerian cycle, the Soros cycle, because my first note says Chaldeans, Saros cycle, 3,600 years, number of degrees in an icosahedron, and then the decan is a platonic month or 1/12 of the great year, 2,160 degrees, and then so one decan is 720 years, which is like 1/3 of a platonic month. So then 3 decans would be one whole platonic month,
which is 2,160 years.
Yeah, or a cube. But back to the vernal equinox and our annual or daily zodiac, that's where it gets into 10 days or 20 days, because 10 days of our life is equal to, this is what I get confused on. I guess it's represented either 720 years in the platonic cycle or 10 days, 240 hours, or 1,444 minutes in our life, which is 10 degrees on the ecliptic, and then 2 decans is 20 days. So they had their year divided into sections of days, which equaled measurements of the platonic year. And that's where the modern so it's like it's fractal, daily, yearly, and then great yearly.
I see that now. I see that. I just had the graphic up in front of me. I didn't have any notes associated with it, so I was just reading the graphic. Yeah. The graphic reads that has it basically 4 columns. In the first column, it gives us the period. The second column gives us the duration in platonic cycle. The third column gives us the duration in annual cycle of the sacred year. And the fourth column gives us the associated platonic solid. So, like you said, one decan was 720. The period of one decan, when you look at the duration of that in the platonic cycle, that is 720 years. When you look at one decan in the duration in an annual cycle of sacred year, that is equal to 10 days or 240 hours, which is 1,440 minutes. The associated platonic solid with that is a tetrahedron, right?
720 degrees.
And then you can do the math on that, right? So 2 deacons is, well, it's 2 times the 720 years when we're talking about the duration in the Platonic cycle. So that equals 1440. When you look at the duration in the cycle of the sacred year, that's 20 days, which is 480 hours, which comes out to 28,800 minutes, and that's associated with an octahedron. And it keeps going until we get to the sorrow cycle.
That's what confused me. The 4 deacons, 3 deacons is 1 planet month, and then 4 deacons, 3,600 years in the Platonic cycle.
Which, if
equal to 50 days.
Yeah, that's what sacred.
Skips 40 and goes to 50.
Hey, and my wife's calling me. Make sure she's okay. She doesn't need that. She knows I'm doing a podcast, so I don't think she would call me unless she really needs something. Yeah. Give me a second.
All right, that's all good. I'll ramble on this. So I guess the 50 days is divisible by 300. You multiply that times 60.
All right, my bad. She left the dog outside. I need to let her back in. Poor Belle.
Give Belle a little pet for me. I can't believe she's still kicking it, man. You know, Chico died Sunday night.
I'm sorry, bro. I know that's like fucking rough, man.
Yeah, it was a major bummer. We came home from work and he was on the floor and he had blood out of his mouth and he pooped himself.
Aww.
So he died the natural way. Ford thinks his, body shut down. She was a nurse, so I like to take her word. His body shut down and, he probably died of shock, so he didn't suffer from a lot of pain. But I was really happy that Chico died naturally at home.
Yeah.
Over bringing him to a vet to euthanize him, because specifically in coronavirus, I just think they wouldn't have let me back there.
Yeah.
And I don't want to send him off like, all right, Chico, that was fun. Bye. And he dies alone and afraid. I'm happy he got to die at home with the other dogs around him. And it was natural. He just went all the way to the end.
Yeah.
So
it's sad.
Yeah, rest in peace, Chico.
Rest in peace, Chico.
So the 4 deacons, the Saros cycle of 3,600 years is equal to 50 days, which is divisible by 300. If you multiply 50 times 6, it's still in that 60. Because the Sumerians built everything off of 60. Because it equaled their 360.
Wait, yeah, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. That he breaks down. He's going to break down some of the measurements that the Sumerians used. We're going to look at the Yugas. And we're going to look at the pre-Diluvian god kings of Sumeria. And what they named their kings and the years of reign that they had, which were like really long, periods of time. So I don't think they were really referring to kings. I think they were referring to cosmological cycles, right? They just said it was, King Alaros reigned 36,000 years. Well, no one lives that long. So they're definitely talking about something of cosmological significance.
Maybe before Jesus was crucified and they destroyed the portal to the other dimension and we lost our supernatural powers, maybe if these ancient civilizations were as advanced as their astronomical science implies, maybe they could.
Maybe.
Maybe they were like replacing their... Because if you read the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, he talks about a river where the leaders of the world would go, and it was a river of blood where they would replenish themselves and continue healthy life. So according to Thoth, which is like the original guy that supposedly built the pyramids and left a hidden chamber in the pyramids where how he built them was hidden. So they're still looking for the chambers in the pyramids. That's why. It's still kind of on the table of possibility that the ancients had ways of increasing their life.
I think Randall Carlson talked to... He did. One thing I like about Randall is that he doesn't really dive into anything other than like pure facts, right? And so I like that about him.
Yeah.
He doesn't really speculate on things, but he did mention that, like, right, how there's a lot of accounts from these ancient religions of these people living for really long periods of time. So yeah, that is interesting. So you know what? You might be right. You might be right.
Maybe.
All right. So getting back to our measurements of the great year and its association with sacred geometry and these sacred numbers. All right. So a Platonic month, or 1/12 of the great year, is 2,160 years, which is the angular total of a cube or hexahedron, to 2160 degrees. He talks a little bit more about an octahedron. We already talked about decans, right? So he just gave us some visual examples of that.
Yeah.
And then he gave us a really cool slide that has all 5 of the Platonic solids represented within the great year, right? So you have 6,480 years, which is the measurement of degrees of the dodecahedron. You have 3,600 years, which is the icosahedron. You have 720 years, which is that's the equilateral triangle, correct?
The tetrahedron, 3D.
Oh, the tetrahedron, the 3D triangle, right? And then you have the octahedron, which is 1,440 years. And then the cube, which is representative of 2,160 years, right? And they all represent these different measurements of lengths of time within the great year. So, and then he talks about how the ancient cultures used to run 2 calendars successively, right? They had a secular calendar, which is much like our modern ones that we use now, that were 365 and a quarter days a year. And they had a sacred calendar of 360 days a year. And they had 5 days of that were intercalated, which I think I had to look up what intercalated means.
Yes, please tell me.
I don't know what that means. It's a verb that means a system introduced to intercalate an extra month in the calendar.
Can you say that again?
I'm just looking at the actual diction. Like my computer just has a dictionary built in. It says intercalate. It's a verb that means a system was introduced. No. It means interpolate. An intercalary period in a calendar. Usually still doesn't make sense to me. Basically, they got rid of those 5 extra days within their calendar.
Yeah.
I can't remember what that was, why they did that. Oh, here it is. Whether it was the Greeks, the Egyptians, the Mayans, or etc., ancient cultures all around the world had similar traditions of setting those 5 days aside every year, as they were considered unlucky. So no one did anything those days. They didn't work or, anything like that. They take those 5 days off, and then they would resume their sacred calendar of 360 days a year. The Sumerians had the belief that the year used to be 360 days, but due to some cataclysmic event, it was extended by 5.25 days. The Sumerians were the first culture to mathematically divide the circle into 360 degrees. One belief is that they did this to make that circle a model of the year, so that then each degree equals the model of 1 day, which would make sense. So we have this synchronization of the cosmic motion representing these numbers. And the ancient cultures would utilize 360 days as a measurement for a year according to the sacred calendar. They could then divide the year into these subdivisions. And that's where he starts talking about the decan. Right, so 1 decan, 10 days, 1440, 3 decans, 30 days, 4320. And 3 Platonic months would equal 2160 hours, or 129,600 minutes, or 1296 that we see over and over and over and over again. So that's how the ancients used to break down our time cycles.
I actually did some extra homework on the Zodiac. So let me just run through this little chart.
Yeah.
So I'm going back in time because we're at the end of the great year, moving into a new one. We're like at the end of it. So
like currently, right now.
Yeah, we're going in to a new great year, the last season. Boom, hitting into Aries. So no, Aquarius. So the last 2,160 years we've been in Pisces on the Zodiac. That is February 19th to March 20th. 4,320 years ago, we were in Aries, which is March 21st to April 19 on our annual Zodiac. 6,480 years ago, we were in Taurus, which is April 20th to May 20. May 20th. 8,640 years ago, we were in Gemini. That's how many seconds are in a day, 8640. So that was May 20th to May 21st to June 20th. 10,800 years ago was Cancer, June 21st to July 22nd. 12,960 years ago, exactly half the great year. And that's when the poles shift and everything changes. So every half. That was Leo, also July 23rd to August 22nd. 15,120 years ago, it's Virgo, August 23rd to September 22nd. Now, 15,000 years ago was before the deluge, before the great flood that melted the ice caps and restarted civilization. Before that, in that 15,000 years ago range, I think Göbekli Tepe lines up with it, as well as some other places.
Hold on, my AirPods died.
Oh, it's all good.
I'm gonna put some other headphones on.
Okay. Yeah, so 15,000 years ago, more than that, we were... Fuck, I wish I could remember the details. I'll wait for Jesse. He's almost ready. Good?
Let me disconnect them.
Okay.
That way you'll have better mic on these. Thinking. Hey, can you hear me?
Yep. Can you hear me?
All right, I'm back. Yeah.
Cool. So 15,120 years ago, approximately ago from today, is Virgo, August 23rd to September 22nd. But before the deluge, Göbekli Tepe and things like that, they were aligned to Cygnus X. Just a fun fact, they were aligned to that star and that star constellation of Virgo, I guess, because I don't know, that number reminded me of, because the pyramids are aligned to Orion, and every different age they align stuff differently. So 17,280 years ago is Libra, September 23rd, October 22nd. 19,440 years ago is Scorpio, October 23rd, November 21st. 21,600 years ago, Sagittarius, November 21st to December 21st. That's the solstice. 23,760 years ago, Capricorn, December 22nd, January 19th. That's me. And 25,920. Yeah, and then Aquarius, January 20th, February 18th. So just a breakdown of the annual Zodiac and the dates and the great year.
How it lines up in the great year in the history.
Yeah, so my astrological sign, the Capricorn, lines up with the 23,760 year Platonic month in the great year. I don't know what that means, but I guess that's where real astrology comes in, not this bullshit newspaper daily horoscope stuff.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah. So the way Randall described it was, if you're looking at the Zodiac, it's like a propeller that goes counterclockwise. I wish I could screen share so we could show people the image, but I'm gonna have to have that set up for next go around so that we can revisit some of this stuff and show folks.
That way
For
they
sure.
don't have to go
For
and
sure.
buy the whole lecture. They can follow along with us from here.
So
Yeah,
25,920 seconds, the great years in seconds, equals 432 minutes, 43,200. That's the diameter, the polar diameter of the Earth or something. Fuck, that'll come up.
hey,
Equals
isn't
seven.
just kind of a side note, but isn't 432 like a weird frequency that you can
Yeah, the
like
tuning.
listen to music, the tuning you can listen to music in, and it's
I,
more pleasing to our ears.
yeah, but
Isn't I remember looking into that like a couple years ago.
more specifically, you have to be tuned into F sharp major at 432 because the notes of that major scale, or some of the major intervals like the 1, 4, and 5 or something,
Mm-hmm.
The actual frequency of the note equals the degrees of a platonic solid. So that's what people I think are getting at when they're saying, oh, you got to tune to 432. It's like if you do, you got to play an F sharp major and stick to a couple of notes, and they're actually sacred notes. So I think that's, and then I actually have some notes on when they changed it to 440.
Let's write a song in 432 in F F sharp major scale.
Dude, yeah, man, I need to make the new theme song in that. But the International Standards Organization endorsed it in 1953 that music be tuned to 440, not 432. This was at the behest of Nazi Joseph Goebbels in 1939.
What the fuck? Why would they even bother with something like that?
I couldn't find it, but there's a chart of all the different notes and frequencies in 432 versus 440, and in that chart there's like a bunch of sacred numbers that show up, and there's a pattern. So from what I understand is when you put it to 440, all of those sacred numbers go away. There's no patterns in the breakdown of the notes. It was pretty complicated. I'd have to find it again. But yeah, if you change it, the standard to 440, you'll never stumble upon any of these. So it's almost like a long game to change science and our reality so that we'll never stumble upon what the ancients considered sacred things that elevated consciousness.
Well, you know what would be the intent? Like why you know,
Because
like why would they want to hide that knowledge, that information? Is it about control?
I think it's about control, because if you become very connected to the sky clock, basically, and the way the world and the universe actually works, then it's combined with their propaganda they've been pushing about a meaningless universe, about chance evolution, about climate change coming from us burning fossil fuels, not solar cycles. There's a lot for them to gain by keeping us in the dark on these things that otherwise, imagine if we're taught these things from the pyramids, megaliths, sacred geometry in high school. You kind of foster a totally different human mind, one that's alive and free. But whenever you condition the whole world to think this is all chance, it doesn't mean nothing. You know, you kind of, it's like I always think about dogs, because dogs have no idea you're doing things to control them. They have no idea you set up the environment so they don't go over here and eat the plant. They just respond. And it's just like us. We have no idea that this whole reality is being curated and set up for us. And on the other side of these boundaries is, I don't know, more freedom, more elevating your consciousness, a true understanding of our potential. Because what all this stuff lends to, for me, is we weren't randomly evolved from monkeys. We were like intelligently, genetically mutated by some super being that came from space. So you kind of have like this whole different narrative.
We're in a simulation.
Or we're in a simulation. That's totally true too. But you kind of have a different society if they all believe that everything is nothing and worthless.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I just had to ask the question, like, what your perspective was, like, why they would want to hide this type of knowledge from us.
It's a good question, and that's why I think, because it's like I always go back to Making a Murderer. The evidence that is really there suggests a much different story than the ones that the police are trying to control the narrative on. You know, the two different stories are much different. One of them, it's like, oh, of course he did it. And then when you look at the actual evidence, it's like the cops look pretty guilty too, specifically this other guy. And, you know, where's the blood in the bedroom? You know, they forced Brendan Dassey's confession. So when you're looking at the evidence of ancient cultures or all this sacred geometry, it simply points in a different way that the people in control don't want you to go there. They want to keep the narrative here. They want to lock it up and just be done with it. So if you leave all this stuff out in the open, it's just a matter of time until people start realizing we're much more of a magnificent species, and we're in much more of a magnificent place than what we've been taught. Because most people don't give a fuck. They're just like, whatever. And then when you really understand, you know, you could sit there and stare at the sky forever and just be...
Yeah, you start seeing these patterns and everything, and you start, you know, you begin to realize that it's more, we're all more connected with this stuff than we've been taught. And you're right, though, like, now that I kind of think about it and think through it, like, even hearing Randall, Carlson, and Graham Hancock talk on, like, Rogan's podcast about how they've struggled to get mainstream academics to take their evidence into account at all. And, and like I said, it's nothing that he's presenting. If you guys go and watch this lecture, nothing that Randall Carlson is presenting, it is really anything that can be taken like as like speculation or anything like that. It's just all pure facts, right? He's laying it all out for you, right? And
yeah, it just is what it is.
It's pretty clear to see how it's connected, like how the stuff's connected. And the same thing with Graham Hancock and like his belief that, you know, the earliest accounts of humankind and mankind that are accepted by mainstream academics are not accurate. Like we have civilizations that existed before that, right? Mm-hmm. And and this dude's been doing it since the 90s, like, and been getting shut down, but like more and more evidence is coming out that like he's right, like they're right about this stuff, you know. But it's like for some reason there's a ton of resistance around it. Mm-hmm. A ton of resistance around this narrative.
Yeah, I mean, if you're an academic or a scholar or a professor, and you even consider these things about advanced ancient cultures, I mean, you're fired. You lose your job. You don't get the book deal. You don't get funding. So there's a huge incentive for people to just stick with the safe narratives.
Yeah.
Basically.
Anyway.
25,920 seconds. This is interesting. The great year in seconds is 432 minutes, like we were just got off on a rant about. 7.2 hours, 72 is a number. That equals 1,080 days. 1,080, 108 again. So 72 years of 360. Hold on, this is confusing. The average lifespan is 72 years. Forgot how that connects in here. I don't know. No, I'm confused. Forget that. But the average lifespan has a... Do you have any better notes to clarify what I was trying to get at right here?
Let me see. That's a little further down. I do have something on there. It's just buried in my notes somewhere. Oh, yeah. The average human lifespan is right around 72 years of age, which, if you think about it, is the length of one day in the great year.
Yeah, 72 years is one day of the great year. So our average human lifespan equals, like, 1 degree on the ecliptic. So, I mean, obviously some people die
That's fucking weird. Yeah, of course, but that's the average.
Yeah.
Let's see. As far as where I left off my notes, it says as the Earth rotates on its axis, it's pulled out from the middle, so the equatorial diameter and circumference is greater than at the poles, which will come into play later. So over a period of half of the great year, 12,960 years, in the seasons. Oh yeah, the seasons actually reverse. So winter would be July, summer in December, etc., as well as in the northern and southern hemisphere. So that's what you were speaking about earlier, how like the poles flip and the seasons reverse.
From what I understand, right now, our magnetic poles on Earth, they're like at the 90 degree. They're being pushed way out right here. That's what's happening right now on Earth. And we're at the end of this Platonic month. Entering into so it's really weird. They're just like being pushed and everything's getting fucked.
Let's see, where are we? I'm looking at, so he has a picture of the great year laid out with all of the astrological periods or months. I was trying to see if I could see exactly where we're at on here. No, I don't understand it. Oh well, I'll come back to that.
We're at the end of Pisces. We're at the end of Pisces. You see
about to go into Aquarius. Yeah, I see it. About to go into Aquarius.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we're going counterclockwise at the bottom.
On this image, like he has 25,920 BP.
Before present.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I have notes about the vernal equinoxes when the day and night are the exact same length. The vernal equinox and solstice are two lines in space that are right angles to each other. That vernal point is moving through space as a result of the axial motion of the Earth. So where that reason we bring that up is ancient cultures went through great lengths to make observations to predict that motion. So they would set up really huge structures that would be oriented to certain points in space. So you look at some of the ancient structures, right? Stonehenge, right? He shows a photo of Stonehenge, and it has like the sun coming up perfectly through the middle of two of the, I don't know what they're called, two of the columns.
Yeah.
Then he shows like a temple in Angkor Wat, which is built around 12th century. And what's really interesting about that is on the spring equinox, right? Like, or it shows a photo of the spring equinox in 2012, and the temple has like three like peaks to it, right? And on the equinox, the sun is perfectly aligned over the middle peak, the highest middle peak of that temple. So they had to predict that cosmic motion in some way in order to orient their structure to line up perfectly. During that equinox, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier. Like, how did these ancient cultures have the knowledge to be able to build these massive structures to align with these cosmological events?
Yeah. And it doesn't make sense because if they're hunter-gatherers, they don't have the resources to spend all this time making these huge unnecessary monuments lined up astronomically. So when you see these huge buildings, it right off the bat, it's an advanced civilization that has the resources, the people, and the understanding and the science to build this while still fun. Because even today we have advanced civilizations living at the same time as hunter-gatherers on islands. So scientists and archaeologists that are like, look, these hunter-gatherers worked with stone tools over here in the Amazon. It was all hunter-gatherers. Like, no, there's no reason to believe there wasn't also advanced civilizations existing at Göbekli Tepe and Angkor Wat and, everywhere else too. So, yeah.
Crazy. Oh, and so I got our answer here. So for the great, as we go around the great year, the cosmic wheel, we have the zodiac signs. For the last 2,160 years, the vernal equinox has been transiting the constellation of Pisces. And it says the vernal equinox is moving out of the star constellation of Pisces into the star constellation of Aquarius. And then it kind of make it real and kind of how the ancients would look at that. He has a photo of where the vernal equinox is at on March 20th of 2012, and it's showing how the vernal equinox is rising in Pisces, and it has the constellation of Pisces laid out on the picture. It's an actual photo of the sun coming up. I don't know where he's at in Earth right here, but I just thought it was really interesting. So that would be kind of how the ancients would have like looked up at the heavens to try and measure that. Mm-hmm. And then, so on, if we look forward on March 22nd of 3,333, the vernal equinox will be rising in Aquarius, like directly in the center of the constellation of Aquarius. So if we look at basically all of recorded human history, it tracks back to the Taurian age, the Aryan age, the Piscean age, and now going into the Aquarius age. So out of all of human history has really only been a quarter of the great year.
Yeah, back to it goes back to the cuneiform tablets.
Yes, cuneiform age of Taurus was where the cuneiform writings were picked up. Right?
Yeah, 6,480 years ago.
And then we look at the age of Aries. That's where Abrahamic religions come into play. And then we're the modern age, which is the age of Pisces, which we're currently in right now.
Yeah, where progressivism is the new religion. It's not on the Zodiac. It's a non-binary Zodiac, so they're gonna redo the Zodiac and add a 13th. Yeah.
It'd be, you joke, but that shit they might really do that shit.
Dude, they're gonna do it when we move into Aries. Everyone's gonna rise up and be like, "Oh my God, Aries is toxic masculinity. He's holding a dead animal. What a fucking bigot!" And then they're gonna change him to like this. It's gonna have like one. It's gonna be Baphomet, because Baphomet's both male and female.
Fucking crazy.
Dude, this is gonna be Baphomet. It's gonna be Aries.
I don't know if you followed the 2 + 2 = 4 controversy online on Twitter.
No, what? Don't tell me.
Go down this fucking rabbit hole. Go look into that. I'm not even gonna get into it.
I don't know if I'll watch
this fucking episode. But yeah, this guy was trolling on Twitter, James Lindsay, and he was basically trolling wokeism, and he made the point that like 2 + 2 doesn't necessarily always equal 4. It can equal 5, or it can equal kind of whatever you want it to. And the fucking woke people actually went into it and like tried to like prove that point that like, yeah, actually 2 + 2 doesn't always equal 4. It can equal 5, and then they try and do all these mental gymnastics to make it work, and it's silly.
Wow.
I'm not going to get into it. It's
That's wonderful.
That's where we're at in society now. We can't even agree that 2 + 2 = 4.
I agree.
Anyway.
I agree that it does.
Well, I do too, but go down that rabbit hole. I encourage you. You'll have fun.
Yeah.
All right, so notice the numbers we've been pointing out this whole time: 2160, 4320, 6480, 8640, 10,800. Right? So that all these numbers keep popping up over and over and over again. And this all relates back to the great year.
My next notes get into the Vedas.
That's where I'm going. That's where I'm getting to. Yep.
This is straight from Randall Carlson, this scripture verse, and maybe you can clarify this because I did get a bit confused.
Before we get into that, I just wanted to point out, like, kind of what we were talking about a little bit earlier, right? Sacred numbers embedded in time. So 25,920 seconds is equal to 432 minutes. 432 minutes is equal to 7.2 hours. Then he has 12,960 seconds, because that's another one of our sacred numbers. That's equal to 216 minutes. 6,480 seconds is equal to 108 minutes. So those two sacred numbers popping up side by side. And the one that I found the most interesting, they have 25,920 hours is equal to 1,080 days. That's an interesting relationship there. And then the most interesting that I found is 25,920 days is equal to 72 years of 360 days. We talk
That's
about
what it was.
Average lifespan, right? 72 years of age. That's kind of crazy, right? You know, and that right back to the length of the great year, right? So,
average human lifespan equals
in relation to the cosmos.
Yo, say that again. Your voice broke out.
It's like designed in relation to the cosmos.
Oh yeah. That's crazy. Average human lifespan. Your voice is cutting out with your microphone on your headset.
Is it still cutting out or what?
I can hear you now, but when you put your hands behind you, your voice goes away.
It's fucking weird. I just charged these. I have a full charge, so.
I don't know. But yeah, our life in days is the number of years in a great 25,920. Interesting.
And he threw up this very interesting quote, in which we're going to get into the Vedas, right? So let the Brahmin hear the praise we utter. This hath the four-horned buffalo emitted. 4 are his horns, 3 are the feet that bear him. His heads are 2, his hands are 7 in number. And that's a quote from the RG Veda. So they had very interesting ways that they encoded, sacred numbers into their texts. Mm-hmm. So if you break down that whole statement, right? 4 is the horns, 3 is the feet, 2 is the heads, and then 10 to the 7th power, right, is in the hands. If you look at 10 to the 7th power, what's 4, 3, 2, right?
You mean 432 to the 7th power?
No. Well, in the graphic I'm looking at, he has 4 as the horns, 3 feet, 2 heads, and then 7 is related to hands. But if you take 10 to the 7th power, and you look at that, that's 4.32 million years in the kalpa. 1 kalpa is equal to 1,000 Mahayugas, right?
Wait. 10 to the 7th power or 432 to the 7th power?
He's adding up. He's saying that if you take 432 and then 10 to the 7th power, that's going to come out to 4.32 million years. Yeah. In the kalpa. I don't know where he was going with that. Maybe I'm myself confused.
The notes that I have, I took 432 raised to the 7th power is 4.32 million.
Well, that's not right, though.
No?
No. 432 raised to the 7th power wouldn't come out to that. Anyway.
I have a fancy calculator. I can try to figure it out. I don't even know how to work the calculator like that.
Yeah, we're too stupid for this, but hey, we're just trying to get you guys the important information here.
432 times
oh shit,
7.
we're like 2 hours into this podcast. Fuck.
Yeah, I don't know how to raise it.
I didn't even realize that we had been going this long.
432.
Oh, so where that comes into play is the modern estimate for the age of Earth is 4.5 billion years old. So I think with that quote that they're talking about is they're referring to the age of the Earth.
Mm-hmm. But that's what confused me, because 432 to the 7th power, like he said, is 4.32 million. So I don't know how it comes out to billion. Kalpa. Kalpa is a Sanskrit word meaning relatively long period of time.
Okay, so kalpa is 1 kalpa is 1,000 Mahayugas. So I guess if you take that and multiply by 1,000, that's where you get that billion, right?
Right, one kalpa is so 404.32 measured in kalpa, so 4,320,000 kalpas, which is 1,000 years. So yeah, 1,000 times 4.32 million would give you 4.32 billion.
All right, so there we go.
Interesting.
That's where that all comes together. But yeah, and so how are they all the way back then calculating the age of the Earth? Right? Where did they get that knowledge from?
No idea.
And then he goes into the pre-Diluvian god kings of Sumeria, right? And what we mean by pre-Diluvian, as you mentioned earlier, is that means before the flood, before the Diluvian flood that happened 15,000 or so years ago, right?
Yo, can I go pee real quick? I'll cut this little section out.
Yeah, that's cool.
You don't have to talk to anybody. I'll just cut that out. Yo.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Yes.
How's the pee? Was it good? Was it very relieving?
Super powerful stream. That's what it sounded like.
It's always good when you have a strong stream going, right?
Super strong. I let the dogs into the room while my wife was napping, and she's mad at me. I miss you, babe. She flipped me off. So we were getting into the
pre-Diluvian kings before the flood. And he wanted he talks about the numbers associated with their reigns. So these are probably symbolical. It's interesting that all the ancient cultures around the world did acknowledge that there was a flood or floods that decimated humanity around the same time. So
and it took people like Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson fighting the good fight to get people like Michael Shermer to finally come out and apologize and say, you're right. You know, Michael Shermer came out and formally apologized. Yeah. He said, I did
podcast where he went to go debate him. So
no, he didn't. This was pretty recent in the last few months. I saw the article. He came out and made an apology because there's been so much scientific evidence that's come out and proved there indeed was a major global cataclysm that ended the Ice Age 11,600 BC, which is like 12,000, half of a great year ago.
Yeah.
And that's what ended the Ice Age. And fucking all that shit happened. And civilization started over. And that's been the alternative science that people have been shitting over because, no, all this, the Grand Canyon, all this flooding, all the mountains in the Pacific Northwest, that all happened over millions of years of gradual. Yeah. It's like, no, that didn't. It happened like in a 3 or 4 day span of the Earth just getting fucking demolished. And then,
I mean, if you go watch that podcast with him, like on Rogan, like they lay out very compelling evidence of that cataclysmic event happening from like the landscape and geology, and then the second half of the lectures that we're talking about today, he alludes to a lot of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's a belief or some scientific evidence that humans lived much longer before the Great Flood. So Methuselah lived to be 969 reportedly. Lamech reportedly lived to be 767. So that was pretty interesting. I know I talked about some of the reigns that the pre-Diluvian kings had and how the length in the number of years is symbolical. So I'll just highlight some of those, right? So the name of the king is Aloros, and their year of reign was 36,000. And you have Alaporos, which reigned 10,800 years. There's that 10,008. Amenon reigned 43,200 years.
You skipped Amelon.
I know, but well, I'm just highlighting just kind of the significant numbers that keep recurring. So, but yeah, Amelon's on there. Amelon's on there at reigned 46,800 years.
They all add up to a total. That's why I made sure to.
Yes, you're right. You're right. They do all add up to a total, and we're going to get to that in a second. Megaloros 64,800 years. That's one of the numbers we saw cropping up. Deonos, 36,000 years again. Udorope. I don't know how to say this shit.
Udorochos.
Udorochis, 64,800. Amemnos, 36,000 years. Opartes, 28,800 years. Zisotros, 64,008. I don't know how to say this shit.
XLS. UHTROS.
That's a hard one.
Yeah, Zalutros.
So, anyways, you take all those numbers, right, and a lot of the same numbers kept cropping up from earlier, right? 36,000, 10,800, 43,200, 64,800 pops up multiple times. You add up all those years, and that's 432,000 years. So once again, we have the 432.
And the significance of 432 is more than the tuning of music that we talked about. It's actually it's a number of measurement of the earth, and I forget, but we're going to get to it eventually.
It's a ratio. Yes, the ratio of the earth. All right. So from one of the Vedas, 360 years according to the human calculation constitute one divine year. Wise people know that there are 4 yugas or ages in Bhartavarsa. The first one is Krata, then follow Treta, Dwarpa, and Kali.
I took notes on these. Can I go through that?
Absolutely. Go through it.
I dug into the Veda. So Satya, or Krita Yuga, is the first of the 4 Vedas. It is, and Veda is the Hindu ages. They're a collection of religious texts. My definition's in here, so I'll get to that. It is the age of truth, the Satya or Krita Yuga, the first of the ages. Referred to as the Golden Age, ruled over by gods, humanity will allow intrinsic goodness to rule supreme, and every work of man is close to the purest ideal. I should have been born in the Satya Yuga. That's kind of how I live. The Satya Yuga lasts 1,728,000 years, or 4,800 divine years. 1,200 divine years equals 432,000 years. So the Satya Yuga is 4 divisions of 432,000 years. Dharma, depicted by a bull, symbolizing morality, at this time stood on all 4 legs. Second, the Treta Yuga, the second age, is a collection of 3 arousing things, in quotations. In Sanskrit is what it means. During the Treta Yuga, 2 avatars of Vishnu were seen. This is in the past because these Vedas, they cycle. They never end cycle. So the last recorded cycle of all this from the Hindus, they recorded that 2 avatars of Vishnu, which is the godhead of the Hindu religion, were seen. 2 avatars of Vishnu were seen in the Treta Yuga. In the Dashavatara, there are a total of 10 incarnations of Vishnu throughout the Yugas to restore order to the cosmos. So that was Vishnu's role, to restore order. So in Treta Yuga, the 6th and 7th incarnations were seen on Earth. The Treta lasts 3,600 divine years, or 1,296,000 human years, 1296. There's that number. In the Treta Yuga, humans' power diminishes slightly. Instead of using mere willpower, kings and Brahmins, a high member of Hindu caste or priesthood, they need to fulfill their desires instead of resist them. Climate changes become more common, giving rise to deserts and oceans. Wars are more frequent. People are less spiritual and more materialistic. Despite this, the Treta Yuga also brought knowledge of universal magnetism. This allowed humans to manipulate and understand forces of nature and the universe's true nature. Mining and agriculture were invented along with societal norms for better control of populations. So I wonder if there's any truth to the Treta Yugas, the Yugas physically, in the realistic truth to it if their understanding of magnetism and science was part of how the ancients built these megaliths when they transported huge pieces of stone, the hardest stone on earth, cut perfectly, transported it super far. It's unnecessary to transport the stones for the pyramids as far as they did to build the pyramids the way they did. It's like, why didn't you use this rock? So I wonder if there's any truth to this about their understanding of magnetism during the Treta Yuga that allowed for this. So the third Yuga, Dvapara Yuga, it's the third of the four. In Sanskrit, Dvapara literally means two ahead, meaning something in third place. This Yuga ended the very moment Krishna made his return to Vaikuntha. So Krishna is the godhead of the Hindu society, not Vishnu. Or maybe they're the same people? Now I'm confused. So Krishna made his return to Vaikuntha, which is his celestial abode in the third Yuga. The third Yuga ended the moment Krishna made his return. According to the Bhagavata Purana, one of Hindu's 18 great historical texts, the Dvapara lasts 864,000 years, or 2,400 divine years. In this era, divine intellect ceases to exist, and it is seldom that people are truthful. Because of deceit, diseases, and various desires plague man. People eventually perform penance for their evil deeds. People seem to be accomplishing their material goals in this era, but realizing their wrong ways. There are only two pillars of religion during this era: compassion and truth. Vishnu assumes the color yellow. The yellow thing is super random. I don't know what it means, but it's there. So also in these yugas, Dharma, the bull, in the second yuga, he stands on 3 legs. In the third yuga, he stands on 2 legs. So his stability, the bull that represents morality, is slowly diminishing throughout these yugas. So in the fourth yuga, the Kali Yuga, that's the age we're supposedly in now. According to the Surya Siddhanta, the Kali Yuga began at midnight on February 18th, 3102. The Surya Siddhanta is a Sanskrit treatise in Indian astronomy consisting of 14 chapters. It describes the ways to calculate the planets and moon's motions relative to the constellation, and also helps to calculate the orbits of different astronomical bodies. Interesting, this ancient text that taught science that we discovered today and are told it was created in the Greek Renaissance era. We're told all of our science comes from Greece and the Renaissance. It's like, dude, this goes back, these sciences. The Kali is an extremely rare planetary alignment documented in the Mohenjo-Daro seals. Going by that alignment, the actual date for the Kali Yuga started February 7th, 3104 BC. So, like 2 years and 9 days difference. The Kali Yuga, or this Mohenjo-Daro book, treats the Earth as a spherical shape, a stationary globe, which the sun revolves around. So it's both the flat Earth model and the modern model today. So it's really interesting that the truth, if this is true, lies in the middle. Like the Earth is a sphere, but we don't move. Everything moves around us. It's like both of the models. Yeah. It does not mention Neptune, Pluto, or Uranus because they are not visible without a telescope. It calculates the Earth diameter is 8,000 miles, but is actually 7,928 miles. And calculates the moon's diameter as 2,400 miles, but is actually 2,161 platonic month. Bharata Varsta is the name of India. Bharata Varsta was the name of India when King Bhara took it over. He was part of a lineage of leaders. It became known as Bharata Varsta later on. In ancient India, the Vedas were the religious text. There are 4 Vedas: Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda, each having 4 subdivisions called Samhitas. These are mantras and benedictions, or the utterance / bestowing of a blessing. The Aranyakas are texts on rituals, ceremonies, sacrifices, and symbolic sacrifices. Brahmanas are commentaries on rituals, ceremonies, and sacrifices. And here's the interesting one. The Upanishads are texts discussing meditation and philosophy and spiritual knowledge. Some scholars add a fifth called Upasanas, worship. Let me Rick, where's that little note that was so interesting? Oh, that note's somewhere else. Oh well. So that's the Vedas and a little breakdown of all the Vedas. Man, I had a note.
Interesting.
I'll get to it.
Well, you look for that, just to kind of tie it back. So 432,000. The Kali Yuga is the same number, total number of years the Sumerians listed for their years in reign of their kings. So if you look at the systems that these ancient cultures utilizing, right? The Sumerians, and so we see the same systems being utilized. Sumerians use the names of god kings as periods of the subdivision of 432,000, and the Vedic years, which begin after that 432,000, it's like they're utilizing the same system of numerology for these calculations. And these numbers are still in use today.
Yeah, I found my note.
Go ahead.
Yeah. It was after we talked about the Sumerian kings. Vedas means what is heard, or Shruti. Other religious texts are called Smriti, or what is remembered. Hindus consider the Vedas to be Aparyasaya, which means not of a man, superhuman, and impersonal, authorless. That's what they consider those texts to be, not of man, superhuman. So they are visions or enlightenments in the form of sacred sounds and texts heard by ancient sages during intense meditation. The Vedas have only been orally transmitted since the 2nd millennium BC. The mantras, the first subdivision of the Veda, is the oldest part of the Vedas and are considered to be, quote, primordial rhythms of creation. Preceding the
like
forms, preceding the forms to which they refer, going back to the shape, the total degrees, in frequency. I think that's what they're getting at, is creating sounds that enhance your consciousness based off of sacred geometry. The cosmos is created by reciting them, by stimulating the forms of creation at their base frequency. The sacred numbers of the shapes, 3,600 degrees, 3,600 frequencies, 6,840 degrees, or 6,840 hertz frequency. Actual notes of sacred numbers as the hertz, and in harmony, different combinations. Music is essentially the art of playing with the fundamental nature of creation. Yeah.
That's what we do, bro. We play with the fundamental nature of the creation.
It gives a whole new meaning to like why we play music. It's not like to be cool or to write a hit. We're actually in control of the fundamental nature of creation. You know, if you learn to use that right.
I always get so aggravated when people that like knew me from my childhood, they come to me and say, "So you still play? You still play music?" I'm like, yeah, it wasn't like a fucking phase I went through where I was like, oh, I just, you know, it speaks to my core being as a human. You know, I'll never not play music.
Yeah.
So I really like that. That's a pretty dope quote.
Yeah. I'll never not play music. Yeah, that's a pretty dope quote.
No, not that, motherfucker. What you said.
The primordial rhythms of creation.
No. After that. You said how we play with the creations of...
Oh. I forgot what I said, but it's recorded, so that's good.
There you go. We'll listen back on it. That was good.
So do you want to keep going balls deep on this? How are you feeling?
What?
It's a good.
Let's get to a wrapping up point here pretty soon.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to go to a doctor's appointment pretty soon.
Yeah, I thought the end of the Vedas would be a good stopping point because we get into the actual monuments and measurements and megaliths next.
Yeah,
he mentions the Mayans.
I was gonna say let's wrap up with the Mayans, right? Make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh yeah, did you explain that one Vedic year is 36 human years? Did you explain that?
No.
Let's throw that out there. So one Vedic year is 36 human years.
Half of the average lifespan, so 2 Vedic years. Your lifespan. Yep.
There you go. So I wanted to throw that out there. All right, so he talked about the Mayans, right? And so Mayans had the world ages, and they had these different cycles they talked about, right? Had one Baktun, which the length is 20 Katun, which when you translate all that to the number of days, right? One Baktun is 144,000 days. One Katun is 7,200 days. One Tun is 360 days. And then one Winal is 20 days. So those are all measurements that the Mayans utilized in their system, right? So we see these same numeric systems being utilized in all these ancient cultures that existed in all different spots throughout the world.
And they weren't supposed to be connected.
And they weren't connected. They didn't have.
Well, they weren't supposed to be. They weren't. The mainstream academia teaches that all these cultures were just separate. There was no intercontinental travel. There was no, but their religion, their star religion, and the essential makeup of their monuments, it's all the same, rooted around the solstices, the astronomical sky clock, the different seasons of destruction. They record the same thing.
Yeah,
it's almost like all these
knowledge.
Yeah, it's like all these different cultures were taught the same thing from some. I feel like I'm on Ancient Aliens. These cultures very well could have gotten their information from extraterrestrial sources.
Yeah.
You know that guy on Ancient Aliens?
I don't watch Ancient Aliens, but
it's the guy. He's the regular guy. He's got gray hair and glasses, and like everything he says ends with that. Like this. It appears to be some kind of gateway that doesn't go anywhere. That's my favorite line. Like everything he says ends like that. This book very well could have been left behind by extraterrestrials traveling intergalactically in a spaceship.
Jesus Christ. Speaking of Jesus Christ, I found that image. I have the picture of you were talking about earlier with Jesus Christ, and then the 4 reliefs around him that represent the 4 seasons of the great year, and it shows the 4 symbols of the Zodiac. So that's pretty crazy. And then Pentagon represents the golden section of geometry. And humans are the highest biological representation of this. Oh, that's what we were talking about earlier with when you look at the Da Vinci's, man with his arms spread out like that. You superimpose a pentagram on top of that, you begin to see that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, so we can, and then what we'll leave it off at is where our sacred numbers are embedded in our solar system architecture. So we'll leave off right there. And then we can pick up there on our next episode. And that's where we start talking about, that's where we're going to talk about, the measurements of the sun, the moon, and earth, and how some of the ancient cultures utilized these megalithic structures, such as the pyramid, as representations of these cosmic entities. So, yeah. I think that we'll stop it at 2.5 hours, give folks a break, and we'll resume next week.
Nice. Yeah, any announcements, any bands, music, web pages you want people to go to?
Just check out I mean, just Golgothan's really the only thing I got going on right now. Other than continue to go check out you and I stuff on Apple Music for sure. But yeah, Golgothan just put out. I mean, we put out that EP, Rotting Genitalia. Go check that out. And we do have a Twitch stream where we stream every week. My day is typically Tuesday, and
Golgothan TV.
When I have time, like I'm Golgothan.tv on Twitch, and I'm kind of when I don't hit it every Tuesday, but if you catch me on a good Tuesday where I'm doing a kettlebell killer workout or something like that, you'll have some fun.
Kettlebell killer workout, yeah. Check out Jesse and I's hip hop record that we did. Black Matter Lives is the name of it. The project is, the artist name is Metamorphicon. That was what we named that album. Black Matter Lives by Metamorphicon. Check that out. It's available everywhere. Check out our other record if you like heavy metal. By My Hands is the name of the record, by Death of Skepsis. Check out my acoustic EP I did a few years ago, Dillon Crozier. It's called The Earth Tone. Just go to my website, dilloncrozier.com. I have all that. My other band, Alfred and the Teddinators, we got ShredCity, Bodega, that album, available everywhere. This podcast, obviously. Yeah, go to my website, dilloncrozier.com. I'll have all that. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Can't wait for next week, man. I'm looking forward to digging into this.
Yeah, man. We'll dig in some more, and
I'm gonna look into that.
We'll just go deep.
Theory Harmony thing too.
Yeah, look into that.
About the nights.
Look into that for me.
Yeah, we'll try to get as much out of this information as possible. So we're gonna hit these podcasts like this until we're done with this info, and then we'll be off a few weeks to get ready for the next one.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of stuff to go through. So.
Yeah.
And I'll have screen sharing set up for next time so that as we're talking about this stuff, I'll have the images that you can refer to as we're going along.
Badass. Hopefully I can get that set up too and share some stuff.
Cool. Well, until next week, have a good one, bro.
Peace. Later, Jesse. Take care, man.
Later, everybody.